Begin the current Daf Masechta Nazir Daf. We begin on the bottom of Hema Beis, 3 lines up from the bottom of the Amud. But the Gemara is continuing a long process here to try to work through a basic machlekes, seemingly, of what's a stam naziris. Our Mishnah said the word stam naziris lamed yoyim, but as we saw in the Gemara, that's not so simple. We had a machlekes by Pada and Masna. Is stam naziris lamed yoyim because his year was the gematria is 30, or is it actually it's 29 days? Because actually, if you count them all the times Naziris, besides one which says you don't count, it's going to be 29. And the Gemara continues asking on these opinions regarding the halacha if it's 29 or 30. Appreciate you joining for today's daf. Something to discuss in today's daf are this machlekes or masma pad, like we said regarding stam nazirs and regarding mikzah and kakul, which obviously is an important factor in regarding resolving some of these texts regarding if you could say that the partial day is like the whole thing. Machlekes regarding Elizabeth Chacham, whether Nitma Yem Shleishim says as I call. What happens is we're going to bring in the Machlekes Tanoim. Someone comes to tell me on the last day, does that demolish? Usually, you come to tell me demolishes everything. But if it's the last day, is it going to demolish everything, or maybe only 7 days? Also, Machlekes Elizabeth Chacham, whether Nitmas B'Yoyim Malayis, when you tell me on the day when you're completing it, let's say 100 days, do you have to recount all the days, or maybe only let's say 30 days? So begin the current daf. Daf Hema Beis, 3 lines up on the bottom of the Amud. Like we said in the previous daf, we had a machlekes of masma pada. Stam naziris is lamed yoyim, or is it lamed yoyim chasa achas, which even according to Bapadu, who said it's only 29 days, but rabbinically, as we explained it through Taisus, Stam naziris is going to be lamed yoyim because we have a gzeira otu mefarish shleishim yoyim. Because the mice, 30 is a number that a person would use, so although it's really 29 days, you might say 30. And since Bapadu does not hold mixim kakuloi, so midarash the naziris completes after a full 29 days. Meaning biblically it's after 29 days, but rabbinically after 30 days because he doesn't mix him kekulis. So therefore, generally you would only be cutting here on day 31. Whereas Rav Masna holds that Stam Naziris Lamed Yom, but he says mix him kekuloi. But the rest of Naziris completes even after a partial 30th day. So that's why they both agree, like we said, that if you cut here on day 30, it's going to be valid, but for 2 very different reasons. Rav Masna is because of mix him kekuloi. According to Pada is because biblically you already finished on day 29, and this 30th day is only rabbinic, and therefore we're going to say that you're going to be Yitzit. So the Gemara continues on our daf to apply the machlekes to several cases. It says the Mishnah, Tanan, 3 lines up at the bottom of the Yamid on Daf Hema Beis. We learned the Mishnah, and this is a question on Bar Pada. The Mishnah says on Daf Tezayim and Alf, the following case. Misha Nazir, Beis Naziris. If someone takes a Naziris of two Naziris, so the halacha is like this. It gets very interesting. So he cuts the hair from the first one on day 31, and the second one on day 61. Okay, says the Gemara. I understand the kind of Masna why it makes sense, because you cut your first one on day 31, which is when the Naziris ends. Again, the Kadra of Masna and Naziris is 30 days. Day 31 is when the first one ends. And you start the second one that same day, because that's pretty obvious, because just like a regular person who's Makabal and Naziris halfway through any day, the halacha is that's counted as a full day. So therefore, on day 60, he finished his second Naziris, because day 31 was day 1. So day 60 is when it finishes. So on day 61, which is after the second 30, is when he cuts his hair for the second one. So it comes out that both Naziris, the taglachas, the hair cutting, was on day 31. And actually, Taisa is bothered. He says, wait a second. If that's the case, then actually, what is that Mishnah teaching as a contra of Masna? The Reisha already said explicitly that Likitchil, you have to cut your hair on day 31. So actually, what's even the Chiddush? So that's not difficult, because the Sefer would be teaching us that day 30 could be counted both ways. As the Gemara actually later on is going to answer according to Masna, which that you don't see from the Reisha. So although, you could always start on the Naziris midday, but to tell me that day was being used for the last one's day 31, and it's also day 1 for the second one, is Epes HaChiddush. So that's not shver. But at least the halacha of that Mishnah makes sense. But as you continue to Bavav Amid Aleph, El Bapada Kasha, according to Bapada, this is difficult. Why is it difficult? It's difficult from the Reisha. Why? The halacha is that you're cutting your hair for the first one on day 31, and the second one for day 61. That's difficult, because why are you cutting your hair for the first one on day 31? Which Taisa says, wait a second. You already asked such a question on the previous daf, and you already answered that, yeah, you cut on day 31 rabbinically, because we're geyser that you have to cut on day 31 because it might be confused when you take a neder of 30 days. So what are you going asking the same question from another Mishnah? Says Tais, a very important klal, it would seem. He says that's how the Gemara does this. The Gemara will ask the same as a previous question, and to answer the same as a previous answer, as long as it tells us k'tzas chiddush mashalei shemanu bereisha. As long as it tells somewhat of a chiddush that we didn't hear the first time around. So it says here also there's a little bit of a chiddush in this sefer according to Bapada that we didn't have from the reish that we asked on the previous daf. As the Gemara is going to later on conclude from the teretz that we're teaching you that according to Bapada, there is, although he disagrees, he holds you don't say miktzim kekuloi. That's only at the end of the naziris. So you don't say that the 29th day, let's say, you can't do just part of it. But in the beginning of the naziris, then you do say. Like when the guy is Makam Naziris, let's say 3 o'clock in the afternoon, he says, you know what, I'm going to be in Nazir for 30 days. So that day, for the next 2 hours till Shkia, is counted as day number 1. So although that Chiddush is not explicit in the Gemara from the Sefer for Bapada, he says you have to say that's what the Gemara was relying on, that this Chiddush, that will say Miksim Kekula in the beginning. Now, Taisus brings another explanation for the Gemara in a slightly different version. That the Gemara's question is like this. We understand the according to Rav Masna, this Mishnah Daf Tezayin makes sense. In other words, this that we say, that he's going to cut his hair for all Naziros on day 31, so therefore the first one's on day 31, the second one's on day 61, even though you know this, so it's like a slightly different version. The Gemara is saying, even though you know this from the first halach of that Mishnah, that you have to cut your hair on day 31, so what's the Sefer teaching us? In other words, what Tosfos himself had asked on this first version, he's explained that that's what the Gemara is addressing in the second version of he's saying of the Gemara's question, that no, you need to have this Sefer of this Mishnah to teach you that day 31, the day 30 will be counted for both ways, for both Naziris, as the Gemara is going to explain, is going to conclude later on. But according to Bapada, it's difficult because even though according to Bapada, you also have to cut your hair on day 31 rabbinically, like I mentioned before. But what's difficult according to Bapada is from the excess of these Mishnayos. Because although the Sefer is being mechadish to us by saying that if you cut your hair on day 30, you're going to cut your hair like at Chila, as we're going to see this shortly, on day 60. So obviously you see that the end of day 30 is going to count for the counting of the second Naziris, and some of that day is going to be considered like a full day, which that you're right, you don't know that from the Reisha. To the contrary, Barpad actually holds that you don't say Biksim Kukuli at the end of the Naziris. But it says Taisus, that's not considered a chiddush to the one who's asking the question, because that's obvious that we consider that for like a person is accepting a half a Naziris midday, that's not considered a chiddush. That's obvious that a person can become Naziris halfway through the day. So according to this second version, that's the Gemara's question on Bar Pada. Like, what's the chiddush according to him? According to Masnas, I understand the chiddush, but according to Bar Pada, there's no chiddush. And that the Gemara is going to answer that, no, you would have thought to say that when did we say that you'll say Miktzim Kukula when the guy was not engaged in the Naziris beforehand? And it's recognizable that he's taking in Naziris. But over here, where he was keeping in Naziris till midday for the previous one, because the only one he brought his karbanas now, so you'd say wouldn't count for him for the next one because it's not recognizable that it's a new Naziris. Even so, it's going to be Lakan Lakan. That's how Taisa explains for the second version. But either as it may, so the Gemara says, Bapada would tell you that, no, this mission is not difficult on me. Let's go back to how the first version had said it, where you're saying, what do you mean? Bapada, why are you saying 31 and 61? It should be 30 and 60. But he says, no, aim a Sefer. Look at the Sefer of that Mishnah. So it's very similar to the Gemara's previous discussion from the previous daf. The Mishnah says during the Sefer, if you cut you here on the on day 30, so you'll cut the second one on day 60. It's like Taisa explains. Obviously, you see that Nazir is 29 days, and that's why he's saying. But the evidence, if you cut it on the first one on day 30, I'd say. So therefore, he says, so the Sefer actually supports me. So Reisha, that Likatchila is saying that you should cut here initially on day 31, that's Ba'omer Shleishim, or like the Girsa that the Bach says, is Nasa Ki Omer Shleishim, which is how Taisus also says it. It's not that he said Shleimim, it's like as if he said, which again, it's rabbinic because it's a Gezer of Stam Nazirs, Otu when you're going to say Shleimim, which then you would have to cut on day 31. As we had already explained this already on the ratio of the Mishnah on the previous daf. Now, the Gemara says, as it did in the first, on the previous Amid, same type of going back now and asking the other Mandama. Wait a second. Then Rav Masna, Kasha Sefer, according to Masna, what do you do with the Sefer? The Sefer is saying, if you cut your hair on the first one, day 30, that you're Yaitzer. What do you mean? You see that you can cut your on day 30. According to Masna, you're not finishing Naziris yet. What are you doing? Again, it's really the same thing. Toys explained this Ksas Chiddush, therefore we're saying it, but it's really redundancy of the first of the ratio of this on the previous daf. Some of Masna we tell you, yeah, Kediksani Seifa. Because what does the Seifa say? Yom Shloishim Oil Lekan Ulekan. Day 30 is going to be counted for either way. In other words, L'katchila, you need to have 31 days. Because a Naziris continues for 30 days, as we'd explained also by the Reisha. And this, that he's cutting the second haircut, L'katchila, on day 60, that's because at the end of the day, so that's going to be counted for the end of the first one, is going to be counted for the beginning of the second Naziris, just like when a person is Makabel Naziris midway through a day. So it comes out that day 30 is the beginning of his second Naziris. So therefore he could cut the second one like a tchila on day 60. Now, so then the Gemara is asking, according to Rav Masna, what's the Tana telling us? So he says, Mahi, what's this miktzis hayom kekuloi? What's this you saying half part of the day is like the whole day? Ha'amra chadazimna. But you already told me this once before. In other words, you're trying to tell me that what the Tana is being mechadish is that day 30 is going to work for both ways. It's going to work for like part of the day was the day 30. And then the reason why you could do the second one on day 60 is because it's already day 1 of the second one. So you're being miyashiv, you're answering, and you're telling me that, oh, the Tana is coming to tell me because makes him kuguli. But the question on Rav Masna is, but ha'amr chadazimna. That already, the Tana already told us already once before, that already know from the Reish, if you recall from the previous Amid, we had said this first half of this Mishnah. The Mishnah said, someone says, we said he cuts us on day 31, and then we said we cut us on day 30 is Yaitse. So we had asked this already on Masna once before. We said, what are you talking about? When you have Masna, you're not done your Naziris. He says, no, it makes him Kikulai. So if I already know makes him Kikulai, what's the Nachamala, Ganta Drasha here with 2 Naziris, and that you're saying that the second Nazir is, the first one, if you did on day 30 and the second one day 60, you can be Yaitse. What's that Chiddush? Because it makes him Kikulai. So, but I already know that in the Reisha. Says no, and I'll tell you this, the K'tzas Chiddush. What would you say, Hanamili, when we say this like Nechad and Nazirais? When did I say that you could say Miktzim Kikulai is running 1 Naziris, which was the Reisha? When you have 2 consecutive Naziris, then I wouldn't say this. Kamash Malon, that is, from the Reisha, all I know is that I'll say the part of day 30 will count for the 1 Naziris that he took. But for 2 Naziris, like the Sefer, which what we're discussing right now, to tell me that the day 30 could be counted at the end of the first Naziris, and that it could also be the beginning of the second Naziris, and it's working 2 ways, I can't do that. How could it be both? That is the Chiddush that the Sefer is coming to teach us. But then the Sefer begins to say, according to Barpada, this should also be difficult. Because what's the Mishnah coming to teach us? If it's coming to teach us that if you cut your hair on the first one, day 30, you're Yaitse, what do you mean? The Reish already said that explicitly. If you cut your on day 30, you're Yaitse. So you have to say, according to Pada, there's also Chiddush in the Sefer, we wouldn't know from the Reisha, which was saying that if you cut your hair on the first one on day 30, you cut your hair on the second one on day 60, like a tchila, that the second Naziris starts on day 30 after you cut your hair of the first one on day 30, and the Chiddush is that end of the day is counting for the beginning of the second Naziris. So it comes out that day 60 is day 31 for the beginning of the second Naziris. Now, although we don't say Miktzim Kekula according to Bapada, on day 30, when you finish the first Naziris that you just finished, he agrees that you're going to say Miktzim Kekula to start the second Naziris, which is fascinating. Just like when a guy is accepting a Naziris halfway through a day, because it's Pashut that it's going to count for a full day, that you don't know from the Reisha. And that's a little bit of it, like we said, a K'tzas Chiddush B'davar, because you would have thought to say that it's only when he hasn't been engaged in Naziris up until this point, and it's recognizable he's starting in Naziris, then you say Miktzim Kekula in the beginning of the Naziris. But over here, where this Naziris is up until midday, I would say it shouldn't count, because not recognizable. That's Kamashmon, that would be the Chiddush as Taisus, according to Bar Pada, in the Sefer of this Mishnah. Okay, now we continue with...
How could the Gemara say that the Katchila, I mean, if the second Nazir started.
When? On day
31st. According to the Rav. And how could you say, well, Katchila, just so you should have 30 days for the first Nazir, you should cut your hair on the 31st. second Nazir started. How could you say that the Katchila just to
Well, the second Nazir is not starting until you finish the first one. Because Ein Nazir is Chal, it only takes effect after you finish. It can't be simultaneous. So whenever the first one is going to finish, so you want to say, meaning, if Midiraisa you're saying, how could the Rabbanan? I hear that's an interesting question. Meaning, if biblically it would be finished, then after 29 days, let's say, and day 30 should be right, but you didn't bring your karbanis, right? It's not Malaysian. Yeah, it's a good question. Meaning, how could Rabbanan prevent a second Nazir from taking chal biblically when biblically it's already finished already? It's only rabbinically that you have to do more. Yeah.
you saying the second one didn't?
The second one's not going to take effect until the first one's done. But biblically it's done according to, let's say, by Pad after 29 days.
It's only done once it is.
Right, so it's only done once you bring karbanis, maybe, right?
What do you do with day 59? Say the 30 days are kind of time, so that's day one.
But we don't say we don't say mix up kula according to Pad at the end.
Yeah, so I'm saying, so half you're saying it's Yom Kippur and half you're saying...
Only in the beginning. In the beginning, yeah, you won't.
That's another thing.
Right, but Pad doesn't say, yeah, exactly. But that we already know from the Reisha. But the Sefer is teaching us, right? But the Chiddush is that it works both ways. I mean, even though the first one has been going till half day, and you're still counting as part of the first one, the second half of the day I'll count as the second one, as the beginning of its 30 days. Now the Gemara continues with another question on Bar Pada from a Mishnah Daf Tezayin Amud Aleph. This is going also on if someone took a 2 Nazires. So it's now we learned in the Mishnah it says like this: Im gilach yom shishim chaser echad. Let's say he cut his hair not on day 60, he cut his hair on day 59. So then the halacha is Yatsi filled the obligation. Why? Sheyem shleishim oilim min aminyan. Because day 30 is going to count, is going to be part of that counting. In other words, that so it's working both ways. So the Gemara says, Bishlam Rav Masna Nicha, I understand according to Rav Masna, this makes sense. Why? In other words, the Tana had to tell me that day 30 is going to work for both ways, because the first haircut was on day 30, and so to the second haircut was on day 59, which was on the day that you're going to come out that the Naziris was day 30 from when you cut the first one. So you have to explain and say, oh, because day 30 is being counted both ways. So comes out that day 30 was 30 from the first one, also day 1 of the second one. So when you come to 59, it's going to be day 30, and on day 30, b'di'evid, you're going to be, because we say miktzim kakuloi, according to Rav Masna, you're going to be yoitzi your chiyuv. But el bapada, lama li, according to bapada, why do you need this for? Ha'amar, but he said, shleishim chaser echad. In other words, he said that the meshach of the Nazir, as the Girs of Taisis, is chavtes yam. Nazir is only continued for 29 days. So why does the Tana have to be lengthy and give a whole explanation, give a whole pshat, and be like tiritzim to explain why it's going to work on day 59? Because yom lamed loy min aminyan. What do you mean? The day of the haircut is supposed to be on day 30. So of course it's pasha that you to be the Evid, because you don't need biblically more than 29 days. So of course day 59 is going to work. So what do you need to come up with the ganze teretz that because it's oilulay min aminyan? So Amalacha, Bapad would tell you, that's not difficult on me. Fakert, anonami ahot samchi. This Mishnah is from where I learned out my halacha that a Nazir is biblically is 29 days. Because what does the Mishnah say? The Mishnah says that Yom Shleishim Oilam in a minyan. Day 30 is going to count for day number 1, which sounds like also that it's going to be the end of the first one. It's just not going to count for the counting of the first one, meaning it's going to be for the meaning it's going to be it's going to work for the meaning it's going to work for the second one, for the last one. It's just not going to count for the first one, like we said, because since the Tana, and the Girs has to be with the word enoi over here, he's not so lenient to count the day for both, meaning to say that on day 30 is when you're cutting the hair, not on day 29. So Barpada says that where I know this from is because on day 30 is when you're cutting your hair. Now, the way it sounds like from Taisa is that the Tana wouldn't be so lenient to work it both ways. So essentially is that he says it's from here that I learned that the Nazir really is only 29 days. How do I learn this? Because since I'm telling you on day 30 is when he's cutting his hair from the first one and he's also starting the second one. So this is why I show you Mixem Kukuli works in the beginning. But it doesn't work at the end because it wouldn't work both ways. That's what it sounds like from Taisus. And therefore from here I could prove to you that obviously it is because Nazir really is only 29 days. Because the Tana wouldn't really do such a thing. You understand me? It's a very fine point, but I think that's what Taisus is saying. That so you see fakert, you see that's not because of Olam in the middle of Lakan. It's because of really Nazir is only 29 days. And that's my source actually. Where I know this halacha that I darshan that it's only 29 days. But now the Gemara continues to
29 days, then would have been over by 58.
No, but we said rabbinically we're going to take you till. Well, first of all, not only rabbinically, if Nazir is 29 days, you only can do your haircut the next day. So you're doing the next day. So
Right, so why can't you have 29 days, the 30th day that he cuts, and then you have another 29 days for the.
but we never do on the 29th day. We only cut the hair on the day after. So
So you cut the 30th day for the first one. And
right,
then on
so that's
the
day number 1, and then when you do another 29 days,
29 days,
that takes you to 58, and then you're going to cut the hair.
59.
No, it takes you. If you do 29, it's going to take you to 58.
No, but the 30th day after the first 29 days is when you cut.
Right. So if you count 30 as 1, it's going to take you to 58.
So that's what it says. In Gilach Yom Shishim Kusarachas, if you ended up cutting it on the 59th
That's not 1.
day,
Wouldn't 31 to 29 take you to 59?
yeah, you have another 29 days.
That takes you to 58 or 59?
You're counting 30.
Takes you to 59?
Yeah.
29, 30.
Are you counting day 30 as day 1? No, but if you're counting day 30 as 1,
Right, that
so
should.
it's 30 plus 28.
Yeah, he's right.
Day 59, you're bringing a couple.
30 plus 28. Because
30 is
day
day one
50
already.
is 1. I mean, day 30 is 1.
Right.
So 30, then you have, if 29
28 more
days,
days.
you have 28 more days. Because 30 is 1.
So
That would
So it
make,
should take you 58.
so when the Gemara says that in Gilach Yom
Right.
Shishim Kusarachas, you ended up you
59.
You cut something David on 59,
Right.
and according to Bapada, it's okay.
Yeah. That's what I'm saying. So that's why it works on day 59. Because even though rabbinically we want you to do an
Then you
extra
take
day.
haircut on day
And you
31.
don't need to come to the Chiddush that Oil the Khan of the Khan. It's day 30.
Right, so he's saying that Oil Lakam means, he doesn't translate it the way you would normally. He says Oil Lakam means to say that even though it's midday, and I'm really finishing up the first one, and why am I finishing up the first one? Because it's really only 29 days. I'm finishing up the first one, even though it's 29 days, but then I only bring carbons the next day.
Yeah.
So brings carbon's hand, you can't start a naya hand. Because it doesn't kick those. This is a halbatug. Halbatug works if you started stam in a regular day. But if you finish up the first one and now, no, you can't do. You have to start the next day. Chiddush is no, oil lakan. But bus mind oil lakan doesn't mean that the first one's actually finishing today. It means that you bring your karbunas from the previous one today. But how you finished yesterday? Yeah, I finished yesterday because it's 29 days.
So then the Katchila should, it's not, then the
No, because we said the Rabbunan, we don't want you to do 29 days. The Rabbunan want you to do 30 days. Because you're going to confuse it when you taka say
no, but
shloishim.
if you're saying that the 30th day is Oil the Khan of the Khan,
Yeah, but what does that mean? That's what I'm saying. When
it
you
means
have,
that the first day for the second Nazir started on day 30.
yeah, that's a chiddush. The chiddush is that even though you brought
Okay.
the
So if that's the case, then you have 30 full days until day 59. Then when the Mishnah says in Gilach Yom Shishim Kuzarachas, Yutzu, that sounds like it's a b'diavad, but no, that's the Katchila, because the 30th day is on day 59.
no, it's b'di'evet because you don't want to be bringing karbanas on day 30 because rabbinically we want you to do 31 days. Meaning rabbinically we want you to do 30 and then bring your karbanas the following day.
31.
According to Bapada, you have 29 plus 1 day, which is the
See, I told you.
But no, but Rapada we had said, and we had asked this in the previous daf, we want you to bring your karbanas on day 31. That's what the Mishnah says. So we asked Rapada, what's this 31? He said because Nasa Koim Shleimim, what Tais is saying doesn't really mean Shleimim, Shleishim, because you might say 30, and if you day 30, but Pada doesn't hold the Miktzim Kukula, you would have to bring your Kabbalah on day 31. So we always say that when you take a Nazir, we want you to bring it rabbinically on day 31. So therefore it's B'di Eved when you do it on day 30. But according to Pada, it makes sense why by B'di Eved works on day 30, because really you finished already on 29.
Right.
So therefore that's why.
And if you would bring the korban on day 29?
Yeah, on day 29?
Yeah.
Or day 30?
Like,
29,
Why
no
can't
one
I
holds
bring it
29.
on the last day?
No one holds because you didn't finish in the Nazirs yet. Can't. According to Rabbi Mas, the day 30 because it makes him
So
kukula.
how
According
can there even be a Halloween to do it on day 59?
because that's 30. 59 is 30. Because day 30 was already day 1 of next one. So the Gemara continues asking from that same Mishnah over there. So now we learn the Mishnah that says like this. Mishamar Hareini Nazir. Someone says that I am a Nazir. So Nitma Yom Shleishim. What happens if it becomes Tamei on day 30 itself? Says the Mishnah, so that's it. Like the halacha generally is when you become Tamei during Nazirs, it demolishes everything. Here also, if you became Tamei even on day 30, it demolishes everything. So the Gemara says, wait a second. I understand the Masna makes sense. In other words, because you became Tamei during your Nazirs. According to Masna, Nazirs is a full 30 days. Which Shesha actually asked. He says, wait a second. Really? Does it make sense according to Rav Masna? But we had said previously that according to Rav Masna, according to Tanakama, we say Miktzim Kukulai. This is a very geschmack. So when you did part of the day, you already finished your Naziris. So the halach is when you finish your Naziris, but you just didn't do your Tahara process, it only demolishes 7 days because you got to wait till you practically for a technical reason to become tar, bring your karbanis. But wait a second, why are you saying Korban Masna makes sense that it's Sois Zakol? It should only be Sois Zayin because you already did mix in Kakulai. So why is that considered that you're middle of your Naziris? You're not in the middle of your Naziris, you finished. You did mix in Kakulai. So Taisu, what you could say is that when do we say mix in Kakulai? That's regarding cutting the hair and bringing your karbanis. Where if you cut your hair on day 30, if you did not become tummy. But if you become tummy on day 30 before you cut your hair and before you bring karbanis, we're not going to make some kakula to consider as if you became tummy on day 31. Rather, you're on day 30. And therefore, your Naziris became tummy, and therefore it's going to be Seis HaKol because you didn't yet finish your Naziris B'Tahara. Shema Kalam this, meaning we'll only say to allow you to bring karbanis, but if you didn't, then you're still in the middle of your Naziris. But then it says, we're going to say, it's difficult to contract Masna also. Just to learn later on that parak that the Mishnah says, if someone says I'm a Nazir for 100 days, so the Mishnah there says, if it became tummy on the day 100, it's Seisra HaKol. Let's say it became tummy on day 101, then it's only Seisra 30 days. So it's Seisra why? But he finished his Naziris. Even according to Masna, it should only be Seisra only 7 days. Why being Seisra 30 days? So it says what you could say is that you're right. What the Gemara is saying is, Bishlam of Masna Nicha, what it means to say is, whether the ratio that says that it became tummy on day 30, where it's Seisra HaKol from the biblical halacha, or the sefer that teaches become tummy on day 101, which are going to be Seisra 30 days, even though he already finished his neder, but that's only rabbinically, because day 101 is the day that he brings his karbanis, where Geyser Atu Yom Shleishim, which is a Stam Naziris Min HaTorah, which there it demolishes all the 30 days retroactively from the biblical halacha. So that's what Taisa says. So from now it makes sense, Rav Masna, both the Reisha and the Sefer, like we just explained. And Taisa says that it would seem that day 31 would also be Seiser Ashleishim because of day 30 itself. And that sounds like later on from the Gemara that says, if we come to day 31, he's Seiser as Hakal. Okay, that's a little extra. But Akaponim says the Gemara, according to Masna, makes sense. Why, if you come to day 30, it's Seiser Hakal? Al-Bapada Kash, according to Bapada, it's difficult, says Taisa, not only this ratio, but also the Sefer. Why is it demolishing 30 days? Whether it becomes tummy day 30, whether it becomes tummy day 101, he finished his neder totally. And there's a dechik to say that when you become tummy day 30, it's going to demolish it rabbinically, because rabbinically you have to have 30 days, as we already explained for Bapada, because at the end, he becomes tummy day 101. It's not appropriate, because even if you're going to say that, says Bavarini a kasha, says maybe you'll say, that no, it's not difficult on Bapada, because you told me rabbinically he also holds has to be 30 days. So says, yeah, but you know what that would be difficult? Is that the difficulty would be is that then what do you do with the sefer that says that it becomes something day 101, which Tracy explains even according to Mas that's only up to the day 30, But according to Bapad, the day 30 itself is only rabbinically. I'm not going to make a gzeira, atu. I'm not going to say 101 is going to be Seisa 30 because of 30, which is Seisa 30, which that itself is only rabbinic. I'm not going to make a double rabbinic. Because, so therefore that's difficult on Bapad. So Getintam and Beis, I'm looking at Bapad would tell you, as we've been seeing this theme of Ema Seifa. Okay, wait a second, let's look at the Seifa. That's the Tanakh that we just quoted. Rabbi Elazar says, no, come tell me name 30, ain't no Seisa L'Shiva. It's only going to demolish only 7 days. In other words, it only takes off retroactive from the Nazirs. It's not going to demolish his Nazirs at all. Meaning, because Bapad says, you already completed your Nazirs on day 29. When you become Tamei day 30, the reason why he's demolishing 7 days is because he cannot bring his Kabbanas until he purifies himself from the stomach. You have to spray yourself day 3 and day 7 to bring your Kabbanas Santara. So that's what we mean when Seis says Shiva. Because you can't drink wine, you can't Namim Tamal Mesim until you bring your Karbanas. So on that continues the Gemara. If you think not like me, says Barpada, like Rav Masa, you need 30 days, how are you going to explain Rabbi Eliezer? Nister Kulu, why is he saying it's only demolishing 7 days, it should demolish all 30? Which Taisus wonders, and this on Amud Aleph, he says, wait a second, Barpada is leaving the Rabbanan and doing like Rabbi Eliezer? He's like saying, oh, you asked me from the Rabbanan, okay, but look at the Sefer, look at Rabbi Eliezer. So what's he answering? If I answer with Rabbi Eliezer and not like the Rabbanan? So Taisus has a very interesting answer. He says, what you could say is, Barpada holds, for the fact that you see by Rabbi Eliezer that the extent of the Nazir is 29 days, so then, yes, there must be the Rabbanan also hold is 29 days. Why? Because we don't find them disagreeing regarding how long Naziris goes on for. We only find their disagreement regarding the halacha of how many days is it Seiser. According to Eliezer, it's only Seiser Shiva. According to Rabbanan, Seiser Shleishim. So wait a second. So why according to Rabbanan would it be Seiser Shleishim? That's rabbinically. Because it's a Gezer de Rabbanan. That when you say Stam Naziris, because you might say complete 30 days, where then, yeah, of course, according to everyone, then it would be Seis HaKol, because you tell me during your Naziris. But Rabbi Eliezer is not Geyser, therefore it's only Seis for 7 days. So therefore, it's not Shver and Bapad, because, no, really, Rabban also hold it's only 29 days. The Gemara later on, that Mishnah later, the Mishnah later on that says it becomes Tamei on day 101, Seis Shleishim, says you have to be Deichik according to Bapad, and to say that's also rabbinically. And it's all one Gezerah, because we asked before, he says, what do you mean, isn't that a double Rabbanan? No, what's called I loiha loikaimaha. The Gemara does this some places that when it wants to answer how it seems like a double Rabbanan, it says no, it's really all one Gezer. Because if we don't keep this one, no one's going to keep this one. Because if you're not going to demolish 30 days when we come to day 101, people come to say, okay, then day 30 also we shouldn't be demolishing 30 days because they're both after the fact. Because day 30 according to Bapad is already finished, so we have to do day 101 also the same as day 30, which is a little bit complicated because we didn't learn that Gemara yet. But back upon them. So that's Barpada's teretz from the Seifa to show that, no, I'll show you from Eliezer like me. Now, the Gemara continues, in a way it sounds like it's answering what does Rab Masna do with the Seifa, but Taisus explains that now the Gemara is going back to resolve Rab Masna, how he deals with Rabbi Eliezer, that as follows, which is really answering the question. So Rabbi Eliezer would tell you that, no, that Miktzas hayoim kukuloi. In other words, just like according to Rabbanan, the continuation of the Naziris is for a period of 30 days, and as some Geseros have the words, and therefore, when there comes Tamei on day 30, it's Seiser HaKoil. So according to Eliezer, he says to the contrary. Not like Barpada wanted to say, that from Rabbi Eliezer you understand what's the opinion of Rabbanan. From the Rabbanan you understand what's the opinion of Rabbi Eliezer. Mamash pink forget. The exact opposite of what Bapada just said is what Rav Masna says. He says, no one's disagreeing about how long a Naziris is for. Everyone agrees to the contrary, that Naziris is 30 days. And if you say, wait a second, if that's the case, according to Rabbi Eliezer, then why does Rabbi Eliezer say, when you become Tamei day 30, it's only 7, it should be all 30? Says Rav Masna, no. Rabbi Eliezer holds Miksim Kekulai. Remember the question we had asked, the Lamdish question Taisa asked? He says, wait a second, according to Masna, why is being Saisa 30? Because you're still within your Naziris, but didn't we say Miksim Kekulai? So we get this Lamdish answer. He said, no, it's work. If you bring your Kabbanis, that'll be Miksim Kekulai. But for Tumah, you didn't finish, so it's going to be Saisa Kol. Says Rav Masna, that's what Rabbi Eliezer disagrees on that Lamdis. Rabbi Eliezer holds, no, Miktzim kakulai. And even if you become tummy before you bring your karbanis, you did part of the day 30, and then you became tummy. It's like as if you became tummy on day 31, and then it's only going to be seiser 7 days. I'm going to skip a few words of taste, it really belongs somewhere else. Rabban hold that no, we don't say miktzim kakulai, where it becomes tummy before you bring your karbanis, and then it's going to be seiser all shloshim yom, and that's machlekes tani kam Rabbi Eliezer according to Rav Masna, very geshmak, and lumdis, and how he qualifies their machlekes and why Rabbi Eliezer is not difficult according to him.
Yeah, but how could the Pada hold like a Yezer when the Pada doesn't hold it makes the same tequila?
He doesn't learn that as miktzim kakulai. He learns it because you're finished on day 29.
So why does he say that I hold according to the Yezer?
No, he's not saying. Forget. Taisa explains. He's not saying. Taisa asked that as a question. Taisa says, "Why? What do you prove from Rabbi Eliezer?" So Taisa explained. He's just showing you from Rabbi Eliezer what the Rabbana also held, because Rabbi Eliezer is clear only 29 days. Because on day 30 become tummy and not being Seis HaKol. Because you finished already. So Rabbana who also don't disagree how long it is also hold it's done. So why they say it's Seis HaKol? Oh, that's for rabbinic reasons because of to confuse it with day 30 when you say Shleishim Yom Shleimim. So that's where Bapad is coming from. So I think continues asking from that same mission over there. It's not.
Even if she's saying it's only Katchila, the Rabbun knows that he's saying Seser HaKol. So this means Seser HaKol. He has to count Naziris again.
Right.
Bring another carbon Naziris, which could be Chilul Mazur.
You want to know meaning if it's saying rabbinically that your tahar. Rabbinically, you have to bring your karbanis up tumah. Well, we asked a similar question once before that if biblically and then rabbinically, we asked this in Taisus. We said Taisus wanted to know how does this work rabbinically. But like I said, when a guy's makabel, he's makabel based on the rabbinic halacha, and therefore, according to rabbinic halacha, you're not done yet. So ultimately, that is still going to be a valid kabbalah. That's not going to be a problem with Chul Nazar. Because Tosha had asked a similar question like that. And he says, no, even lets you use kinui, which is rabbinic, like we said, according to one madam, it's rabbinic. Tosha says, it's Chul Nazar. He says, no, that's your Kabbalah, and that's, the Rabbanon have that power, that authority to say that that's what you're saying. So another Gemara asks from that same Mishnah, which we were referencing this halacha before when Tosha kept on bringing in the Seifa. Now we actually quote it. The Mishnah says, now we learned about the Harini Nazir Me'yan. Someone says, I'm a Nazir for 100 days. So, what happens if Nitma Yomeya? Well, come tell me, Mamish, the last day, 100th day. Wow, it's like I was reading by the Ribnitz, like he would go 310 times in mikvah, and he came out and someone touched him. I would say, Nuchamol in the heiß of mikvah, or the freezing, go, Nuchamol tzvik, Mamish, you got to all the way to the end, you got to day 100, and Nitma Yomeya says to the call. So it's going, okay, you made it day 100, but you didn't know cigar, it undoes everything. Lezer says, no, ain't a no, it's only demolishing 30 days. Okay. Says the Gemara, you're going to think to say that Savri Rabbi Eliezer, as Rav Masna just said, that Rabbi Eliezer holds makes him kikuloi, and that's why you said his whole shtikot Torah. Then when you come to me day 30, according to Rav Masna, it's not going to be seiser, but 7 days simply because you have to become pure, but it's not really seiser or anything because you're already done, even though you need 30 days, but makes him kikuloi. So wait a second. Why when you come to me day 100, isn't seiser 30? According to Rav Masna, Nista Shiva. Should we say so only 7 days? But then the Gemara asks now on Barpada. If you don't hold part of the days like the whole day like Barpada, Lista Kulu. It should demolish everything. So this is difficult on everybody over here. Says the Gemara like this. That no, the last question you asked on Barpada is not difficult. The truth is loymin mixim kikule. I could say that not like the way Rav Masna said. That Rabbi Eliezer does not hold part of the days like the whole day. So wait a second, if that's the case, list the kulu. So then, why doesn't it demolish all 100 days according to Barpada? That a Rish Lakish says like Barpada, we don't say mikzim kukuloi. So then the question is, why isn't this so everything? So Rish Lakish, because Haini Tam Rabbi Eliezer is based on Amakra, on the pasuk about Midbar. What does the pasuk say? Pasuk says, Zois Teiras HaNazir. This is the halacha of the Nazir. B'yoim Malois Yimei Nizir, on the day that he completes the days of his Nazirs. What's the Torah saying? Nitma B'yoim Malois. If someone comes to me on the day that he completes his Nazirs, which is day 100, that 10 loy Teiras Nazir. That's what it says. Zois Teiras HaNazir B'yoim Malois Yimei Nizir. If you become tummy on the Yom Malois, the day that you're finishing, so mamash like Zeres like Hasav, that we give you Teiras HaNazir. In other words, you have to do another stam naziris, which is how much? Which is 30 days. And that's a gezeres hakasab that it's not going to be seiser es hakoil. Now, Taisa wants to know, or some Gesayos say that this belongs previously, but be that as it may, according to Pada, according to Eliezer, when you become Tameh on day 30, why is it only demolishing 7? It should be Seiser Shleishim, like Rish Lakish said, Tenlik Teres Nazir. Rish Lakish just brought a Gezeres HaKasiv, that on the last day, you have to give 30 days. So Taisa says, yeah, but over there, according to Pada, that's after Malais. It's not B'yoy Malais, it's after Malais. Why? Because Stam Naziris, according to Pada, is 29 days. So of course, about Pada, you're not waiting 30 days. But then they begin to say, wait a second. That's very good according to Pada. According to Rav Masan, that he says, according to Beliezer, he says, Miktim Kukulai, then even if a person becomes Tummy before he brings his Karbanas on day 100, it's only demolished only 7, because you're also after Malais. Because, what are you saying? You tell me B'yay Malais, but it's not Yay Malais. It's Acha Malais, because Miktim Kukulai. So what you have to be doichik and say is that now we're talking about where he says, I am a Nazir Me'er Yom Shleimim. I'm a complete 100 days as a Nazir. Oh, now you cannot say Miktim Kukula because it said Shleimim. However, it's still not going to be Seiser everything from Rish Lakish's drasha. Because when you become Tamid B'yay Malais, it's Gezeres HaKasav, it's only Seiser Shleishim. Very Gishmak. But that says it's still difficult. Because the Mishnah just says stam. It's not specific. It just says 100 days. It doesn't say this word shleimim. Which
the person said previously that when someone says shloshim, then it's
that was from Bapada. Because since Bapada holds, you don't say mixim kukulai. So when you're saying Harin Nazir, is automatically.
No. The person here said.
When you say shleishim, it means shleimim. That was only in Bapada.
When someone says shloshim, it's not when he says that I mean. Someone says shloshim.
Yeah, but that's what I mean. Harini Nazir shleishim. Shaisa says it's going to be shleimim according to Bapada. Only according to Bapada because.
Not because mixes are
No, because.
Here, if you are reine shloshim yom, have a heimatbeis. If you are reine shloshim yom, have a kiili shleimim.
Why?
Otherwise, he would have said reine nuzir. So he's saying that when someone specifies a number of days, that's already considered as if he says shleimim.
Okay, but that's only when it's 30. When it's 100 doesn't automatically mean shleimim, because that number is important because you don't know how many days he's taking the zeros for. That's right, like I said, according to Masna. But also, you have to understand, it's only when you say 30, because 30 is unnecessary. It's just saying Harini Nazir. When you say, you can't just say Shleishim. You say Harini Nazir Shleishim Yom. Shleishim is superfluous because a regular Nazir says 30 days. 100 is not like that. 100 is saying the number. So Tais is saying, it's difficult because what are you saying, Kuf Yom? I mean, the Mishnah doesn't say the word Shleim. It's very important the way we're describing. Additionally, Tais has another question. He says that instead of differentiating, according to Eliezer, between becoming tummy on day 30, which we're saying is only 7 days, which this is the Mishnah. It's very important to see the Mishnah. We'll see it later on, Daf Tezayin, but the Mishnah is making all these differentiations to when you become tummy day 100, which is going to be slice or shleishim. Says, why didn't you differentiate always in the case of becoming tummy on day 100 itself? And you should say, when did we say this halacha is when you say shleimim? Then you have to be slice 30. But when you didn't say shleim, it's only be slice zayin because it makes him kikulai. So why are you making different cases? In the same case, you could say these two chalukim. So this Taisa, it seems to the Maraf that the Mishnah is talking about where he said, you're right, he only said I'm a Nazir 100 days, he didn't say shleimim. Then the question is, according to Master, according to Eliezer, since he makes him kukulai, even if you become Tamei day 100, it should only be say Zayin because you're already done because it makes him kukulai. He says, no, it's not difficult. Because Rish Lakish is saying this teretz is coming out that the Gezeres HaKasav is that Sleish Shleishim, so therefore obviously it's going on the day when you finish it, which is when you finish on day 100. Because although you're right in halachic lumdis, you say makes him kukulai, but you can't say as if it became Tamei day 101 acham alais, it's only says a Zayin, because if he doesn't become Tamei So then he's going to have to complete a full 100 days. In other words, this is Yom Malois. Basically, what somebody is trying to say is, it's a kasev. When on the day that you're finishing, it's going to be 30 days. So you're coming with a lam de shachap and saying it's not the last day. What, the day before is the last day? Like, what does that mean? This is the last day. So the Gzeis HaKasev is saying it's going to be shleishim. But then it says we're going to say, wait a second, then the Reisha also. When you become Tamid day 30, according to Eliezer, why is it only demolishing 7? Should we say shleishim? Because that's the Yom Elais. And you tell me that's Gzeis HaKasev. So it says what you can say is, now the understanding of the pasuk sounds like that it's talking about when you were explicit in your nazirs and not in the stam nazirs, because it says if he became tamid b'yoy malais, then we give him a teres nazir. In other words, a stam nazirs. With the inferences, very lam de shachabta is saying. That means up until now it wasn't a stam nazirs. You hear what Tais is saying? He's saying you have to there's many steps over here, but he's saying for the drasha of the pasuk you see it must have been that your first nazirs was a numbered. Because you mafarish. Because I'm telling you, Teres Nazir. What Teres Nazir? I just had a Teres Nazir. No, you didn't. You had a specific one, and I'm going to give you a generic. But if you took a Stam Naziris, we're not talking about that at all. If you become Tamid Diyam Elais to give you another Teres Tam Nazir, no, we don't. We're not going to give you 30 days. Because since according to Rav Masna and Bapad and Nazir, it's only 29 days, so if it's only with Saisa Zion, according to Rabbi Eliezer. But the safest one, we explicitly said 30. Oh, then that's not that. Since you specifically said 30, the Rebbe Eliezer would agree. If you become Tamid day 30, would be Seisei Shleishim, because you're right. According to him, that that's where the pasuk is telling you there's Teres HaNazir. So very interesting Teres Taisig is. But now Taisig goes on. Now the Gemara goes on to we finished with our questions. Now that we finished the discussion, the Machlokes by Pader and Masna, the Gemara says, let me get Tanoi. Let's say that actually it seems to be Machlokes Tanoim, the Machlokes Amaram by Pader and Masna. Where do we see this? So there's a pasuk in Bamidbar. The pasuk there starts that all the days of his vow of his naziris, a razor should not go on his head, and it says Ad Malois Hayamim, until he completes the days, which the pasuk there says that he took a naziris for Hashem. He should be holy. He should grow his hair long. Now, when it says Ad Malois Hayamim, says the Brisa Shamani Miit Yamim Shnaim. I would understand that what's the minimum of days? What's Malois Hayamim? Days, the minimum, a plural is 2. And a stam naziris will be 2 days. Oh, Tamalem, so I need the pasuk to continue there and say, Kadosh Yeh Gadol Pera. He's going to be holy. He's going to have his hair grow long. Now, Ein Gidol Sar Pachas Mishleishim. Growing hair long is not less than 30 days. Just Divrei B'Yeshia, because as Tais says, like the Gematria of Yeh, which is 30, that's Kadosh Yeh. Rabbi Yomi says, no, in a tzarch, you don't need this. Why? It says until he completes the days. What are the days that he has to complete? Meaning, as Tais explains, a month is something that has to be completed. Because sometimes a month is 29 days, and sometimes it's 30. So when I'm telling you it's the completion of the days, what's completed, what's something chaser and sometimes is mole, is a month. That's how I know a Naziris is for 30 days. Okay. Says the Gemara, my love, isn't this the machlekes? Rav Masna, who we quoted, as we remember from the previous daf, had said that how do you know a Naziris is 30 days from the Gematria of Yiyah? So he's done with Rabbi Yeshe. He says like Rabbi Yeshe, who obviously expounds Yiyah, because that's the pasuk he's quoting, Kadosh Yiyah, and that's how he knows it's 30 days. Whereas Ubapada, Rabbi Yonasan, he says like Rabbi Yonasan that it's only 29 days because he's darshing from Ad Malois. And we know what's called Ad Veloy Ad Bechlal. What's something that gets filled up as a month? But only Ad, which is 29 days, not 30 days. So Machlekes Rav Masna and Bapada of 29 and 30 is Machlekes Tanoim. Says the Gemara, no. Rav Masna would tell you it's not true. Everyone agrees that it has to be 30 days, like me. Now, the Machlekes between Rabbi Yonis and Rabbi Yeshe is in general, do we say, when you say ad, until something, are you including that thing or not? Rabbi Yeshe holds that in general, ad v'loy ad b'chlal. That when you say up until something, it's usually not included, and therefore, as Taish explains, he needed yet to say it's going to be 30, because everyone agrees to me it's 30. Rabbi Yonis held that generally, ad v'ad b'chlal, when you say up until something, it includes that destination. Also, he doesn't need the drush of Yiyah. He could learn it from Ad Malois, because Ad is including that 30th day of completing it. But says Taisus, according to Pada, he would have to say it's a machlekes tanoim, because how could Rabbi Yeshua say it's going to be 30 days? So, but Rav Masna at least could say he's like everyone. Now, just to finish up till the Mishnah, Amamar, we had quoted Rabbi Yonason who said, what are considered the days that have to be completed? Meaning, how do you know a Stam Naziris is 30 days? Because a month is something that have a month is 30 days, like we said, according to Padre Rav Masna, it's machlekes, is he saying 29? Because Ad B'Leibach, or it's 30. But be that as it may, that's how we know it's 30 days. Says Gemara, how do you know this? Ve'em Shabbos. A Shabbos also completes the week. So how do you know it's a month that the 30th completes the month? Says no, Shabbos mikeh chaserusa. Shabbos, you think you're ever missing? In other words, all the days of the week are completed by Shabbos, but it's never chaser. A month has to be completed because sometimes it's missing. So it cannot mean that the Naziris is for a week. But then says the Gemara, the maybe it's a year, because like Tais explains, there are years that are mali, which have many days when you have the months are more days, and some are less. So maybe the Stam Naziris would be a year. Says the Gemara, no, do you think you count a year for days? But the rabbis of Caesarea, they said, how do you know that you don't count a year by days? Shamak says in the pasuk in Shemais, it says over there, this week's parasha, always a good sign, to the months of the year, which you see, we count a year by months. We don't count a year by days. And when you make an ibriyo, when you make a leap year, you add on month. You add on the Adar Sheni. You don't add on 20 days or 15 days. Here, the pasuk says, Malais hayamim, until the days fill it up. So if it must be a chaydish that we're talking about, and that's how we know Stam Nazir is going to be a month. Thank you, Torah, anytime for hosting us. Whoa.